My freshman year of college, I married my professor. It was a marriage of convenience, forced on her really. So for 4 years, I was the one who did all the loving. I put her on a pedestal and worshiped the ground she walked on. But recently, something had shifted. She started calling me her husband in private. She even said she wanted to start a family with me. With graduation just around the corner, I let myself believe she was finally ready to make us public. But that happiness was like a firework, a brilliant flash, then gone. The night of the graduation gala, Julian Croft came back to town, and my wife, Eleanor, took 3 shots of whiskey for him, shielding him like he was the one who mattered. Then she practically melted into his arms. I was right there in the same ballroom. Just hours after she talked about trying for a baby with me, she was drinking for another man. I pulled out my phone. "Eleanor, I'm going home." I sent the text and stared at the screen. This was it. This was the last time I would ever be her doormat. Home. Our home. I told myself if Eleanor walked out of that ballroom right now, I'd forget I ever saw it. After all, I was her husband. I should understand. She was a successful academic, a rising star. It was just a few drinks, a bit of professional schmoozing. I couldn't just storm in there and torpedo her career over my bruised ego. But I waited, and the excuses I manufactured started to sound pathetic even to me. She didn't come. I waited longer. The gala wound down, the crowd thinned, and finally, Julian emerged with his arm wrapped around Eleanor's waist. She looked flushed, like she'd had too much to drink. They were pressed together so closely there was no air between them. I ducked behind a marble column, a sharp, twisting pain seizing my chest. Eleanor was a notorious neat freak. It took me a full year just to get her to agree to sleep in the same bed. It took 2 before we ever consummated the marriage. I treated her like she was made of spun glass. And now, Julian Croft had accomplished more with a flick of his wrist. He had my wife defending his honor, drinking his drinks, and now, holding him like a lifeline. The irony was crushing. "Eleanor, if you never loved me, why did you give me hope? Why did you agree to marry me in the first place?" I was about to step out to demand an answer when a low, magnetic voice cut through the quiet lobby. "Eleanor, is there really no chance for us?" I watched Julian dip his head, his eyes, liquid and intense, fixed on her. He was the picture of sophisticated charm. Compared to him, I was just some kid throwing a tantrum. The kind of man Eleanor deserved, I guess. But I was her husband. I stare, my mind caught in a loop. If she nods, I'm filing for divorce. I don't care if it goes against my father's last wish. I'm done. I held my breath, desperate not to miss her reaction. But I've been standing in the cold draft of the entryway for too long. A wave of dizziness washed over me, my head growing impossibly heavy. I didn't even realize I was burning up with a fever until the polished floor rushed up to meet me. Thump. The sound shattered the perfect little scene, and I never got to see her answer. "Caleb," someone shouted my name. A moment later, I smelled her perfume, Eleanor's unique scent, now tainted with the stale smell of another man's whiskey. It made my stomach turn. My only regret was that I hadn't seen her face. I hadn't gotten my answer. I woke up in a hospital room. My rented tux was gone, replaced by a cheap, starchy patient gown. Eleanor was asleep on the vinyl sofa, her chestnut hair spilling over the armrest. She looked peaceful, ethereal. The woman I had loved so desperately. But the truth was, she'd been cornered into marrying me. When my dad died, I'd lost the will to live. I was standing on the edge of the Tobin Bridge, ready to end the loneliness for good. Eleanor found me. She promised my dad she'd look after me, and she'd meant it. "Whatever you need, Caleb," she'd said, her voice raw with grief. "Anything. Then marry me." I challenged her. It was a bluff, a bitter lashing out meant to push her away. But she just looked at me, her own eyes red-rimmed, and managed a broken smile. "Okay, we'll go to City Hall tomorrow." It was a mistake from the very beginning. Looking at her now, a self-mocking sneer tugged at my lips. "Eleanor," I whispered, my voice thick with an emotion I refused to name, "let's get a divorce. I'm letting you go." On the sofa, she stirred, her brow furrowing in her sleep. I ignored it and carefully slid out of the bed. I couldn't talk to her. Not now. She was my professor, a master of rhetoric. She could talk circles around me, and I just end up drowning in the sorrow of her eyes, conceding everything again. So I went home. I grabbed my passport, my birth certificate, and my wallet. That was all. I was getting a divorce. The thought, once it took root, was impossible to suppress. For 3 days, I ignored every call from Eleanor. I needed to be alone. I was just waiting for my lawyer to draft the papers. Eventually, I turned off my phone and buried myself under the covers of a cheap hotel bed. The next time I saw her, she was flanked by 2 police officers. Her hair was a mess, her eyes red and frantic. She looked like a cornered animal. The second I opened the door, she threw herself into my arms, her hands clutching the back of my shirt, holding on so tightly I could barely breathe. It was just like every night for the past 4 years. I'd hold her just like this, a suffocating embrace, as if physical proximity could bridge the emotional chasm between us. Now, I was on the receiving end. "Caleb, why did you run? Do you have any idea how terrified I was?" Her voice trembled. "If something happened to you, how could I face your father's memory? You're still so immature." There it was. For her, it was all about the promise. About duty. Today, I finally understood. One of the officers spoke gently. "You two should talk. Your wife was worried sick." But her worry wasn't for a husband. It was for a child she'd been tasked with babysitting. The talk about having a baby, that was probably a lie, too. Swallowing the lump in my throat, I pried her hands off me. "Eleanor, let's get a divorce. We could go today." My voice was a raw scrape. I watched the shock bloom on her face and could only offer a bitter, twisted smile. "Don't worry, Professor Vance. I'm not going to hurt myself. You can rest easy. The divorce, it's to set you free." Her head drooped, and her eyes welled up instantly. "Caleb, can you please stop being so childish?" She reached for my hand, but I flinched away. All I want is a divorce. The air hung heavy and silent. The police, seeing it was a domestic issue, excused themselves. We were left standing in opposition, a silent standoff, until a courier arrived with an envelope. The divorce papers. That's when Eleanor finally broke down and sobbed. It was only the second time I'd ever seen her cry like that. The first was at my father's funeral. She looked up, a fierce, wounded pride in her eyes, like a cornered cat. It was as if I were the one insulting her. "Caleb, you haven't grown up at all in 4 years. You're not mature enough to make this decision, so I don't agree to it." With that, she snatched the papers, ripped them to shreds, and stormed out, leaving the pieces to flutter to the floor. Just like my heart. She had never, not once, seen me as her husband, and I had only ever been the fool who loved her so much. I was willing to indulge her every whim, even her condescension. I couldn't understand why Eleanor wouldn't agree to the divorce. Maybe it really was just about that deathbed promise. She was a woman who honored her commitments, to a fault. But now her true love was back. It was time for the immature placeholder to step aside. I decided to go to our apartment to talk to her calmly and to pack my things. It was time for me to put a dignified end to our mistaken marriage. But when I opened the door, an unwelcome guest was already there. Julian Croft was wearing my pajamas, typing on a laptop at our kitchen island as if he owned the place. "You must be Caleb," he said with a smirk, blocking the doorway. He looked me up and down, his gaze dripping with disdain. "Come on in. Eleanor's not feeling well. She'll be back soon. Make yourself at home." They're already living together before the ink on the divorce papers is even dry? Of course. Move in while the husband's away. A classic, scummy move. I strode past him, ignoring his taunts, and went straight to the bedroom. I pulled out a suitcase and started throwing my clothes into it. "What are you doing? Seriously, are you that much of a child? A few crosswords, and you're packing your bags to run home to mommy and daddy." Julian leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. I wanted to punch him, but I had to keep it together. I just want a clean break. For her sake and for mine. Get out of my face. You want to be the other man? You're not even in my league. I wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. The words had barely left my mouth when I heard the front door open. Eleanor was home. Instantly, Julian clutched his head, feigning a dizzy spell, but his eyes flashed with triumph. "Ow, what did you hit me for? God, such a hothead. A real child. You bastard," I muttered under my breath. The urge to get out of this place, to escape this farce, was overwhelming. My head was spinning. Why couldn't she have waited just until we were divorced? Was it so important to bring him here now? Did she have to rub my face in it? I was shaking with a rage I couldn't contain. She was the one who wanted out of this marriage more than anyone, yet she clung to her promise. Was it all just to torture me? Caleb. Her voice was weak and hoarse. Eleanor appeared in the doorway, her face pale and drawn. She looked fragile, like a ship lost at sea, but her eyes lit up when she saw me. Julian immediately switched to protector mode. Eleanor. Julian, thank you for taking care of me, she said, her eyes locked on me. Caleb, and I need to talk. You should go. She was telling him to leave. For a second, I felt a flicker of something, but Julian clutched his head again, moving to stand in front of her. I'm not leaving. Eleanor, your little husband has a violent streak. He just hit me. What if he hurts you? He lowered his voice to a conspiratorial whisper. He accused us of having an affair. He called me your side piece. I don't care what he says about me, but you're a woman. Eleanor's brow furrowed into a tight knot. She looked at me, her face a mask of disappointment. You're being absurd. You're not a child, Caleb. How can you say such things without thinking of the consequences? She fell back on her favorite conclusion. I was immature. It was laughable. Forget it. There was no getting through to her. I was worse off than some indentured servant. I was a man, legally her husband, but in her heart, I was nothing. I continued packing, my heart a dead weight in my chest. The divorce papers are in my bag. I've already signed them. The 30-day waiting period ends next week. We'll finalize it then. No divorce. Eleanor coughed violently, her face growing even paler. She pressed a hand to her chest, desperate to cut me off. I'm not signing. Caleb, let me explain. I know you've misunderstood. Julian was in the first graduate cohort I ever supervised. I was a new professor. He helped me a lot. I'm grateful to him, but we're just friends. Don't overthink it. Then her tone shifted back to the one I knew so well. This is just one of your moods. I get it. But Caleb, please, don't make me feel like you haven't grown up at all. I'm so tired. She said it as if I was always the one being unreasonable. But Julian was in our home, wearing my pajamas, taking care of my wife. Every single one of those things was a privilege Eleanor had granted him. She wasn't an innocent party here. Eleanor, let's be honest. It's not about me growing up. It's that you never wanted to be on the same level as me. I need a wife. Even if she didn't love me at first, after 4 years, you'd think a block of ice would have melted. But you never once treated me like your husband. So I'm done loving you. My words silenced her. Julian's face broke into a triumphant grin. I knew I shouldn't look hurt. It would be pathetic. But looking around at the 4 years of memories in this apartment, I couldn't just walk away calmly. In the end, Eleanor walked me to the door. I left with a single suitcase holding a few changes of clothes. The memories I left behind. Caleb, when you've calmed down, we'll talk, she said gently, as if she was certain I'd come crawling back. As if my rage was just a childish tantrum. It was that same feeling of powerlessness, like punching cotton. No pain, just suffocation. As I left, I glanced back at Julian, who stood there like a conquering hero. I gave him a faint smile. Julian, that pajama set you're wearing? It's on me. I got on clearance at Target. It's cheap. I looked back at Eleanor one last time. Just like a heart that's gone bad. No matter how much you treasured it before, it's never going to beat for you again. A month later, I gave up the graduate fellowship I'd been offered at the university, but I still wasn't divorced. The 30-day waiting period ended. Eleanor never showed up to sign. I heard she'd been in a car accident. It happened the day I officially turned down the fellowship. My roommate, Jake, told me she'd been rushing to the admissions office to check the final list of appointments. I didn't bother trying to figure out why she was in such a hurry. Maybe she was afraid I'd stay. Or maybe she was afraid Julian wouldn't get a position. Because I'd seen his name on that list, too. 3 days later, my graduating class organized a visit to see her in the hospital. I went, but I didn't go in. Julian was there, by her side, feeding her pieces of cut fruit. They were laughing. Seeing that, a familiar ache spread through my chest. I turned and left. The next day, I was on plane. I had enrolled in a master's program in London. My flight was a month earlier than I'd planned. For a year in London, I worked constantly. I had a string of part-time jobs and never touched the trust fund my dad left me. Eleanor made regular deposits into our old joint account, what I used to call our future fund, but I considered that money tainted. We weren't a family anymore. Jake had been shocked by my decision to leave, especially after I'd worked so hard for that fellowship. Dude, I just needed a change of scenery, I told him. I'll be back eventually. After all, I wasn't divorced yet. A year passed. The thought of Eleanor still brought a pang of sadness, but it was duller now, less frequent. I never expected that in a city as massive as London, our paths would cross again. Night fell. A crowded London pub. "Shun, that table over there." "Big spenders," said Chloe, another intern, pointing towards a dark corner. I used the name Shun for my job. It felt anonymous. I grabbed a fruit platter and headed over. If they order cocktails, I can make some extra cash. There was a design competition in Manchester next week, and I needed the money for the train fare. The thought put a spring in my step. But as I rounded the corner into the secluded booth, I saw her. A flash of a red, form-fitting dress. Chic, beautiful, half hidden in the shadows. It was hard to see her clearly, but I'd know her anywhere. It was Eleanor. In my shock, I tripped, stumbling forward and sending the fruit platter flying. I hit my head hard on the corner of the table. "Oh my God, Shun, what are you doing? So clumsy." Sonny, my boss, a Chinese expat, rushed over. I ignored the throbbing pain in my forehead and scrambled to my feet, pulling my beanie down low to hide my face. "Sorry," I mumbled, affecting a thick accent, hoping to blend in. "It's fine," a cool voice said from the booth. It was Eleanor, her tone flat and devoid of any emotion. "Just bring us another platter, and 3 bottles of Macallan." I wasn't sure if it was the pain or the sound of her voice, but my heart hammered against my ribs. "Caleb, get a grip. You don't feel anything for her anymore." I took a deep breath. 3 bottles of whiskey. That was a serious order. Sonny's eyes lit up. "Shun, get right on it for a guest." I nodded numbly and bent to pick up the broken platter, desperate to escape. But a hand shot out and grabbed my arm, yanking me back. "Caleb Hayes, it is you." Blood was trickling down my forehead. Julian Croft had appeared from the entrance, and he swatted the beanie off my head. He recoiled slightly as his hand came away sticky with blood, wiping it on his trousers with a look of disgust. "Eleanor, look, isn't this your little ex-husband?" "You didn't recognize him?" Julian paraded me around for the table to see, a triumphant sneer on his face. "Hard to recognize him, isn't it? I guess when Big Sister's not footing the bills anymore, he doesn't look so rosy-cheeked." He clicked his tongue. "Fresh out of college. Can't find a real job. So you end up working here, huh?" Julian's voice was laced with mockery. He pointed at a stain on my shirt from a spilled drink earlier. "And look at this wine stain. So unsanitary." His words landed like stones. Laughter rippled from the booth. I felt like some grimy, pathetic creature on display. "So this is Professor Vance's famous fling," one of them said. "Don't be rude. They were married. Caleb was her student, wasn't he?" "Really? I never heard about that. What year was he?" Their whispers buzzed around me. I tried to block them out. Then Eleanor spoke. "I don't know him." Her voice was cold, distant. Of course, in her world, I was always someone to be hidden, someone who couldn't be presented on the main stage. Even though we were still legally married, she would deny my existence to save face. I turned to meet her gaze, and in that moment, something inside me finally clicked into place. A wave of calm washed over me. I smiled a real smile and put my beanie back on. "You're right. I don't know you either. You're old. You have no taste, and any professor who hangs out with a pack of Botox hyenas can't be a very good person." I stared directly at her, not blinking. The disappointment was total. Absolute. "And whoever your husband is, I feel sorry for the guy. To be shackled to you at such a young age. What a terrible waste." I saw a flicker of something in Eleanor's eyes. Disbelief. Shock. Even the quietest person will eventually bite back. I knew why she'd done it. She thought denying me was a form of protection, a way to keep me from being dragged into her drama. She was always protecting me in ways that only ever hurt me. But she was wrong. I was a man. Before, when I loved her, I was willing to be her loyal subject, her devotee. I worshipped her for years, and I would have for years more, because back then, it was just us. But now, we were nothing to each other. We were on the brink of divorce. No one besides Julian even knew that I, some punk kid, had once been her husband. What a complete and utter failure. She didn't acknowledge me, so I didn't have to hide anymore. I brought the 3 bottles of whiskey to their table. Eleanor drank one glass after another. Julian sat beside her, beaming with pride. "Eleanor, slow down. We have that conference tomorrow, he murmured, his voice a soft, intimate rumble. One of the other female academics at the table perked up. Professor Croft, are you and Professor Vance? Julian just smiled and shook his head, a playful, knowing look on his face, as if he were indulging Eleanor's coyness by not revealing their relationship. Professor Vance was my mentor. She supervised my graduate thesis. Though, funnily enough, I'm actually a year older than she is. Oh, the table chorused. Well, then you definitely owe her a toast. A glass was passed toward Julian, but Eleanor snatched it from the air. Julian's allergic to alcohol. I'll drink for him. There was again Eleanor, who never saw anything wrong with a woman drinking on behalf of a man, even a man who was so clearly interested in her. Her conscience was clear, but she left a trail of wreckage in her wake. Good thing I didn't care anymore. Julian looked at her with pure adoration, his eyes occasionally flicking toward me with unconcealed glee. Eleanor's always like this. It's true, one drink and I break out in hives. It's so good to have her. A pair of lying scumbags, I thought. Drink up. I checked my phone. 30 minutes until my shift was over. The 3 bottles were nearly empty, most of it consumed by Eleanor. I frowned. I knew she could hold her liquor. On our wedding day, she drank me under the table and then ordered another bottle of tequila. But this was different. The whiskey was catching up with her. Sure enough, she was visibly drunk, a rarity for her. Bartender, she slurred, pointing a wavering finger in my direction. Take me to the restroom. 15 minutes left on my shift. Not a chance. I didn't move. Sunny was watching from across the bar. Normally, if a female patron had too much to drink, one of the female staff would help her to a cab. But tonight, no one moved. Caleb Hayes. I have to go to the bathroom. Come and carry me. She staggered toward me, her body swaying, and before I could react, she collapsed against me. Hey, get off. Eleanor clung to me, holding on with a desperate strength, as if she were the one who was lost and homeless. What crazy thought. A second later, Julian was up from the booth, moving to take her. But Eleanor's voice, thick with alcohol, whispered right next to my ear. Husband, take me home. She paused, confused. No, wait. I came with Julian. I froze, a wave of nausea rolling through me. Get your damn hands off me. Who the hell is your husband? I shove her away. Julian caught her just as she stumbled. I turned to leave, but Sunny's voice boomed across the room. Shun, what do you think you're doing? I kept my head down. Boss, she was grabbing me. Sunny loved money, but he had his principles. He ran a clean establishment, and he wasn't about to let it get a reputation for harassing the student staff. It was a common enough problem. Wealthy women with weird predilections looking for young guys. He had to draw a line. The next thing I knew, Julian, Eleanor, and their entire party were being escorted out. The bill, Julian grumbled, glaring at me. 12,000, I said, holding up the card reader, refusing to even look at the woman mumbling husband in the back of the waiting taxi. Pounds! Julian pulled out his phone. This is London, my friend. We use pounds here. Are you going deaf in your old age? This is robbery. The prices are on the menu. Well, they were now. I may have updated them. When someone doesn't bother to check the price, you take them for a ride. It felt good. Sunny, seeing the look on my face, had just nodded. Julian tried to pay with Apple Pay. It declined. He tried his card. Declined. He tried again. Insufficient funds. Oh, Professor Croft, I said with a cheerful smile. A whole year on the academic circuit, and you can't even cover a bar tab. Maybe you should get a job here. The benefits are pretty good. His face darkened, his eyes burning holes into me. The other academics started whispering amongst themselves. He's not going to make us split this, is he? Professor Vance drank most of it. I don't care who drank it. Julie invited us. I'm not paying. After several minutes of fumbling, Julian still couldn't cover the bill. Panicked, he tried to deflect. You're a thief. There's no way 3 bottles of whiskey cost this much. Get me your manager. Oh, okay. I'll just call the police then. I wasn't going to waste my breath arguing with him. The prices were clearly marked. His fault for not looking. Hello, police. There's a man here who won't pay his bill, and he's threatening me. The police response was dramatic. They surrounded the pub, rifles raised, their aim centered squarely on Julian. I hadn't expected him, this big, confident man, to crumble so completely. He went limp with fear, collapsing to the pavement too terrified to even speak. "Sir, drop your weapon and put your hands on your head." Julian had no weapon, of course, so it was quickly downgraded to a civil dispute. In the end, everyone from the booth had to chip in to cover the bill. The great Julian Croft had invited them out, and his guests ended up paying. No one was happy with him. He had no choice but to bow his head. "I'm so sorry. I promise Eleanor will reimburse you all tomorrow when she's sober. I'm so sorry." Julian and I just had to go to the station to give a statement. Eleanor was sent back to her hotel in a cab. Julian was cuffed and put in the back of the police car with me. "You got a mean streak, Caleb Hayes," he said quietly, his tone surprisingly calm. "I never thought the little deserter who ran away crying a year ago would grow a spine." He smirked. "But you still ran the second you saw us." He was trying to get under my skin, his anger barely concealed beneath the surface. I just laughed. "Ran, no. I just find the sight of you too nauseating." I leaned in. A bunch of old has-beens trying to reenact some high school drama. "Are you still trying to be the other man?" "Julian, as long as Eleanor and I are married, you'll always be a supporting character. A pathetic one at that. You heard her call me husband, right? You know what they say in vino veritas. I've been gone a year, and you're still just a backup plan." Sad. I practically spat the words. Julian's face contorted with rage. He opened his mouth to retort, but an officer cut him off. "Hey, quiet back there." I turned around and made a face at him from the front seat. "Suck it." After tonight, I knew I was finally, truly over her. I didn't care what Eleanor Vance thought of me anymore, and that freedom was intoxicating. I could finally fight back. Before, I was so afraid she'd think I was violent or immature that I wouldn't have dared say a single curse word. Afraid she'd see me as child. Now I was just me, and she was just some ex who couldn't draw a simple boundary. Not worth it. The next day, my phone rang with an unknown number. I had already texted Sonny to tell him I was quitting. So today I was going to sleep in. Without hesitation, I declined the call. Again and again. A deserter? Yeah, I guess I was. Eleanor could try to find me, try to drag me back. It wasn't going to happen. I would wait 2 years. In the UK, 2 years of separation is grounds for divorce. I could file without her consent. This time, the decision was mine, not hers. It was just a shame I didn't have the money to go to Manchester for the competition anymore. I couldn't go to Manchester, but my supervising professor managed to get me a remote entry, allowing me to participate via video conference. "Shin, what do you want your code name to be?" "Everyone has one," Chloe Song asked. Her voice was even, but I could hear a trace of warmth she didn't use with others. She had a crush on me. She tried to lend me the money for the trip, and when I'd refused, she'd pulled strings to get me this remote spot. But I couldn't reciprocate. I was still married. Chloe was brilliant, beautiful, and came from a wealthy family. Her father was a distinguished dean at the university. She had every advantage, but never used them, earning the respect of every international student on campus. She reminded me of Eleanor, the kind of woman who naturally draws people in. It was a magnetic pull I was terrified of, a trap I couldn't and wouldn't fall into again. "Chloe, thank you, but maybe I should just sit this one out. I'm not really in the right headspace for a competition." "Caleb," she said, her voice gentle but firm, stripped of all emotion. "This competition is for the International Student Showcase. We're representing our whole community. I need you to think beyond your personal feelings." She had me. It was the one argument I couldn't refuse. After a moment, I sighed. "Fine. Call me the homewrecker." I couldn't help but snort, picturing Julian's furious face at the police station. The competition was in its 3rd day. I was still attending my regular classes, only joining the video meetings at night. But tonight, the atmosphere on the call was tense. Our team's core technology had somehow ended up with a rival group. Team member, "Chloe, what do we do?" Team 8 hired a visiting professor from King's College as a consultant, and now it looks like we have a mole. They stole our entire design. Team member B, "The presentation is in 2 days. We should just pull out." Team member C, "It's that Julian Croft guy. He's on their team now, and his expert consultant apparently refined our algorithm and made it even better." Team member D, "I saw her the other day. The expert. She's a woman. Julian Croft? An expert consultant? It couldn't be that much of a coincidence." My hand froze on its way to my water glass. What does this Julian guy look like? A photo appeared in the group chat. I almost choked. It was him, all right. Staring at Eleanor with an expression of such intense devotion, he looked like he wanted to devour her. Chloe's face was grim. The core tech was the heart of the project. Redesigning it from scratch now was impossible. I have a backup plan, I said quietly, but it will require a live rehearsal to get the timing right. My main task had been prepping for the finals, so I had a more complex, high-risk design I'd been working on in parallel. It was too difficult for the team to implement quickly, so we'd shelved it. Chloe's eyes lit up. She sat up straighter, a relieved smile gracing her lips. Caleb, do it. As for the money for the trip, you can pay me back from the prize money after we win. Okay. I had no reason to say no. Besides, Julian showing up right when a mole appears? I didn't believe in coincidences that convenient. That night, I called my old college roommate. Jake, you told me Julian Croft had a lot of connections from his time abroad. Can you do some digging? See if anyone in our competition group graduated from the same university as him or was overseas at the same time. 20 minutes later, I had a name. The team member who had suggested we quit. He was an alumnus of Julian's grad school. I sent the info to Chloe. My train was pulling into Manchester Station. Just then, a familiar scent drifted past me. A woman in a chic, pink suit walked by, then stopped dead in her tracks. Caleb. The voice was familiar, trembling, and full of a wounded sorrow. Eleanor's eyes were instantly red. What are you doing here? She looked stunned to see me, muttering to herself, It's Caleb. It's really him. I found him again. She looked like someone who'd been lost in a storm for days, utterly broken and vulnerable. For a split second, my heart ached. But we were wrong for each other. Even now, she didn't see me as her husband. There was no going back. It wasn't worth it. I offered her a polite smile. Just visiting Manchester, a little sightseeing. I didn't tell her that a minute ago, Chloe had confirmed the identity of our mole. It was the guy from the group chat. Julian had paid him to scan and send her project files. Julian, the man Eleanor held in such high regard. If I told her he'd stolen our work, she wouldn't believe me. She'd just call me childish again. No, I wouldn't subject myself to that humiliation. I'd had enough disappointment to last a lifetime. I turned to leave, but she quickly sat down in the seat opposite me. The scent of her perfume enveloped me, and I stood up, ready to walk away. Don't go, Caleb. Caleb, let's just talk. She grabbed my hand, her voice a low, pleading whisper. But what was there to talk about? Jake had told me that in the years since I'd been gone, Eleanor and Julian had become a celebrated academic power couple, winning award after award together. Where did that leave me? She didn't have a heart. I couldn't let myself get soft. 13-inch let go. I pulled my hand away, my gaze cold and hard. My patience was gone. Eleanor, we are getting a divorce. As soon as I graduate and return to the States, I'm filing the papers. Her eyes welled up again. She shook her head, her whole body trembling. Caleb, believe me, there's nothing between Julian and me. The university signed him on as my teaching assistant. It's a contract. I can't get rid of him. She tried to explain, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Eleanor, I never stopped looking for you. For a year, I flew to London every chance I got, but I couldn't find you. I didn't know which school you were at. Then, at the pub, I saw you. I wanted to talk to you, but you ran. I figured you didn't want to see me, so I decided to respect your wishes. Tears started to stream down her face, splashing onto the table between us. She looked so pitiful. I promised your father I would take care of you for the rest of my life. Don't be so childish and ignore me. So childish as to run away to another country. Caleb, let's just go home. I stared at her, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. My nose burned. She had no idea what I wanted. She never had. She thought she was doing what was best for me, but she never treated me like a husband. No one knew I was her husband. Her friends call me a fling. She called me childish, but she was the one who selfishly made all my decisions for me, never giving me a chance to be a man, letting others walk all over me. Go home with her, go back to being her nameless, secret husband. What about my degree? My future? She didn't care about any of my efforts. Eleanor, it's too late. It was all too late the second you stood up at that graduation gala and took a drink for Julian Croft. I made up my mind to divorce you right then. It was too late the Sakani walked into our home and found him wearing my pajamas. You were tainted in my eyes from that moment on. The train hissed to a stop. I grabbed my suitcase and walked away without a backward glance. The words were cruel, but they had to be said. 5 years. I had loved her for 5 years. From the first moment I saw her until this one. And now I was finally letting her go. I wasn't that 20-year-old kid anymore. 14 Chloe was waiting for me just outside the station gate. As I walked toward her, I felt a single tear trace a path down my cheek. What's wrong? Why are you crying? Chloe's face was etched with concern. She reached up to wipe the tear away. I instinctively pulled back, but it was too late. A sharp slap echoed through the station. It's you, isn't it? Caleb, you're divorcing me because of her, aren't you? Eleanor's voice shook with rage. She seemed as shocked as I was that she'd hit me. Her hands clenched into fists. A second later, the two women were a tangled mess of flying hair and fury. I stood there, stunned for a moment, realizing Eleanor must have shed her pink jacket and followed me off the train. Eleanor, stop it. Let me explain. I tried to pull them apart, but they were locked in a desperate struggle. At first, they were evenly matched, but Chloe, taller and more athletic, soon gained the upper hand. Chloe, let her go, I said, my brow furrowed as the fight escalated. Caleb, stay out of this. Caleb, is it because of her? Did you fall in love with her? Eleanor's eyes were wild, boring into me as if trying to see into my soul. Is that why you won't come home with me? Do you love her? Is it? You love her, so you don't want me anymore. Eleanor stood up, her voice filled with a tragic certainty, as if she had just confirmed her worst fears. Chloe frowned. Peeling off the jacket Eleanor was still clutching. The momentum sent Eleanor stumbling backward onto the floor. So you're the one Caleb can't forget? Chloe said, her voice dripping with contempt. Pathetic. Let me tell you something. I'm the one who's interested. I'm the one who's been pursuing him. He hasn't even taken the bait yet. If you have a problem, take it up with me. Married for 5 years, and she thinks the second we're separated I'd cheat on her. Am I really that contemptible to you? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping me. Eleanor slowly got to her feet, straightening her clothes. She looked at me with a hard, defiant expression. Caleb, you've changed this past year. You've learned some bad habits, haven't you? You learned how to scam people, how to sow discord, how to run away from home, how to get people thrown in jail. You're still so immature. Shut up. The words exploded out of me. I stared at her, the last vestiges of my old affection turning to ash. You're not even Eleanor Vance anymore. I spoke softly, but she just laughed, a broken, chilling sound. You're right. I'm going crazy. She looked at me, her eyes pleading. Why couldn't you just go back to worshiping me, the way you did when we first got married? When you only loved me. Her desperation was plain to see, but I felt nothing. No pity, no pain. Fine. If she wants me to be the bad guy, I'll be the bad guy. I took Chloe's hand and walked away, leaving Eleanor standing alone in the middle of the station. I didn't look back. 15 back at the hotel, I locked myself in my room. The core technology design required absolute focus. Chloe would leave meals outside my door, but other than that, I didn't open it for anyone. The night before the final presentation, I finally went down to the garden for some fresh air. Did you hear? Chloe's hiding some guy in her room. Yeah, I heard. It's a team project, but she's refusing to show the committee our final design. She really thinks her pretty boy can pull it off all by himself. If we lose, it's our reputation on the line, too. I sat on a bench, hidden by the shadows of a large oak tree, listening. I had no idea this was all happening. I heard she bet her position as student union president with the university just to buy that guy more time. What's his name again? Something Wrecker. Home. The Home Wrecker. Oh my God. So that's why she calls herself 3 on the team roster in some inside joke. That's so messed up for a girl to call herself. Their whispers continued. My frown deepened. Just then, Chloe appeared, a vision in a gold couture gown. The faint bruises from her fight with Eleanor were still visible on her face. What are you all talking about? Have you memorized your presentation notes for tomorrow? Her voice was cool and crisp, with no trace of warmth. Who would have thought this powerful woman was such a romantic, she'd give herself a nickname like that? I bury my face in my hands. How are we supposed to prepare when you won't show us the final design? You gave all the good parts to your boy toy. Yeah, what she said. My location behind the tree was perfect. Chloe hadn't seen me. This was getting ridiculous. And the prize money. You're not planning on splitting that. I stood up and walked into the light. The reason the tech is being kept secret is because we have a mole on our team. The fewer people who know, the better. I looked directly at the most vocal critic, my eyes narrowed. Unless, of course, you're the mole. Desperate to get your hands on the design, so you can run off and sell it. That's ridiculous, she stammered, her face paling. I knew I'd hit the mark. The group finally dispersed. I turned to Chloe, a guilty smile on my face. Chloe, I'm so sorry. You got hurt because of me, and you've been dealing with all of this on your own. She just shrugged it off with a smile. Then she pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was from a hospital. Julian was holding Eleanor, their bodies pressed close, Eleanor's face buried in his chest. She doesn't deserve someone as good as you. She looked up at me, her voice softening. And if you really feel bad, you could always repay me by offering yourself. Her words were playful, but they hung in the air, a question I couldn't answer. I had truly loved Eleanor. My heart wasn't ready to let anyone else in. Not yet. I couldn't respond to her feelings, not honestly, so I deflected. I planted a listening bug on the mole's phone, I said, my voice low. They've been in contact a few times, but nothing concrete. After the scene I just made, I have a feeling we'll get something good tonight. Chloe's expression was a complex mix of emotions. She gave a small, sad smile, but didn't call me out on my evasion. She just nodded. Okay. That night, the final competition was held in the university's main auditorium. All contestants were required to attend, but masks were permitted. There were no real names here, only code names. Chloe had a white mask ready for me. I chose not to wear it. Tonight I was settling things once and for all. Ladies and gentlemen, let's draw for presentation order. In the end, we drew number 5. Julian and Eleanor were number 1. The moment their design appeared on the main screen, a collective gasp went through the audience. The judges nodded in approval. Impressive, very complete, and highly innovative. Excellent work. Yes, truly excellent. The reaction in the room was electric. But it was our design. They were nothing but a pack of thieves. Behind me, my team members sighed in defeat. All except the mole, who sat with her head held high. I shot her a look, and she quickly feigned disappointment. A real actor, just like her friend Julian. After the presentation, Julian took the stage for the Q&A. He was dressed in a bespoke suit, bathed in the spotlight, but his gaze was fixed on Eleanor. Chloe looked at me with concern. Was she worried I was jealous? I let out a small, humorless laugh. Jealous? Of a thief who stole second-rate goods? No. I was just thinking how far he had to fall. It was a shame about the suit. It looked expensive. I had a crate of rotten eggs waiting backstage. Soon, it was our turn. Chloe stood up. She was our designated speaker. When Eleanor saw her, I could see her eyes narrow behind her mask. Her gaze then darted around the room, searching for me. I didn't meet her eyes. I just watched the stage. I had just found out that Chloe had used her father's influence, something she hated doing, to keep my identity a secret from the organizers. She had done so much for me. There was only one way I could repay her. I had to win. Hello, everyone. Chloe began. I am 3, the leader of Team 5. I should be the one presenting our project to you tonight. But I can't, because this project is the work of one person. A spotlight suddenly hit me. Chloe, who had somehow procured a bouquet of jasmine, held it out. I want him to be the one to present it. This is his moment to shine. Before I could react, Eleanor shot to her feet. Your code name is 3? She hissed, her voice trembling with rage. What a fitting name. For you. She glared at me, her eyes flashing. It was a clear ultimatum. If I accepted that bouquet, I was betraying her for good. Chloe stood on the stage, smiling, beckoning me to join her. This is your victory, Caleb. You earned it. Okay, I said, my voice ringing with a newfound confidence. Then today, I'll give everyone a show. I walked to the stage. I opened my presentation and began. Julian's face went dark. He had clearly not expected me to be here, let alone to be the star of the show. Our team had been the underdog. Chloe had kept our progress under wraps. This was my debut, and my checkmate. I had nothing to be shy about. I wasn't that kid anymore. The stage was set. It was time for the immature, childish one to finally reveal the truth, to rip the mask off Julian Croft and let Eleanor see who had truly changed for the worse. When it came time for the judges to deliberate, they took much longer than usual. The issue was our secrecy. They worried we might have cheated. Some argued that our project was too good, that it was unfair to the other students. Julian was the first to object publicly. Judges, Team 5 has been secretive this entire time. For them to suddenly take first place is unfair to all of us. Who knows what kind of backroom deals were made? As he spoke, Eleanor looked at me. Her expression was clear. See what you've become. You've learned to cheat now that you're with her. You've gone bad without me. The stage lights felt warm on my face, gentle, like my father's hand. I'm doing the right thing, aren't I, Dad? You always told me. You have to have thorns. If you're too soft, everyone will try to crush you. I really did love her. I would have done anything for her. But she shouldn't have given me hope, only to throw me back into the mud. I opened my eyes and picked up the microphone. I connected my phone to the sound system and hit play. Julian's agitated voice filled the auditorium. Hey, is their new stuff any good? Send me a picture of it. I'd like to, but the new guy is locked in his room all day. We don't know anything. Besides, you still haven't paid me the rest of the money for the last files I sent. It's only $10,000. When this is over, Eleanor and I will sponsor a donation to a charity in the mountains or something. She'll eat it up. You'll get your money. Just get the job done. No, no, no. Julian started screaming, trying frantically to explain. Eleanor, listen to me. The recording ended. Eleanor's expression was vacant. She looked like her soul had left her body. She just stared at me. Caleb, I didn't know, she whispered, as if all the air had been forced from her lungs. You didn't need to. Suddenly, the main screen flickered to life. It was a video of Julian at a different bar, drinking with another woman, laughing. It was an accidental find from Jake's background check on a mole. He wasn't allergic to alcohol at all. He drank just fine. The special student in Eleanor's eyes was looking a lot more special now. Julian saw the video, and his face contorted with hate. You're framing me. Caleb, you hate me because Eleanor loves me, so you're trying to destroy me. You're just a childish coward who ran away because he got cheated on. This is all just revenge, isn't it? The auditorium was filled with the project's sponsors and faculty. The golden boy, Julian Croft, the brilliant young professor, the celebrated designer, was standing there in his expensive suit, raving like a lunatic. I ignored him and walked to the judge's table, placing a folder with my original, time-stamped design documents in front of them. I would like to file a formal complaint against Julian Croft of Team 8 for colluding with a member of my team to steal proprietary research. This competition was a high-stakes talent search run by major corporations. The prize money was huge, the prestige even greater. And there was one thing they hated more than anything else: plagiarism. In the end, Julian and his mole were once again surrounded by police. Someone from my team found a crate of rotten eggs I'd hidden. Splat. Ugh, what's that smell? Who threw an egg? The first one was a bullseye. Julian's perfectly coiffed hair was now dripping with a mix of black and yellow ooze. The splatter hit Eleanor's pale yellow gown, leaving a constellation of green and brown spots. Get out of the competition. Get out of our school, someone yelled. Thank God, they're not the ones representing us. As they say, the good guys win in the end. 20 Julian Croft's career was over. For breaking the competition rules and for the corporate espionage that came to light, he served a year in prison before being deported. Eleanor, while not complicit, lost her job in the fallout. I heard she went to teach in a rural school district in Appalachia. The next time I saw her was a year later when I returned to the States to finalize our divorce. We met at the courthouse. She was wearing a plain white t-shirt and jeans. The elegant, sophisticated aura she once carried was gone. If you're both certain, please sign here. The clerk pushed the forms across the table. I signed my name without hesitation. Eleanor's eyes were red. She looked at me and gave a sad, bitter smile. I'm sorry, Caleb. I failed you. I broke my promise. But no, I was wrong. Can you give me another chance? I do love you. She couldn't look me in the eye, her body trembling. Eleanor, it's over. We can't go back. The day we got our marriage license, I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. But you said you couldn't handle a professor-student relationship scandal. So I graduated. I applied for fellowship so I could be your colleague. I thought maybe then you'd finally introduce me to people, not as your student, but as your husband. But I waited and waited, and all I got was that graduation gala, where everyone in the room thought you and Julian were the perfect couple. You call me immature because you never, not once, saw me as your husband. I looked at her, my voice calm. as if I were telling someone else's story. Eleanor opened her mouth, as if to explain, but I cut her off. Our problem was never about other people. It was about you. You gave them the opportunity. The truth is, you didn't love me as much as you thought you did. It was just a promise. Sign the papers, Eleanor. A clean break is the best ending we're going to get. Finally, I walked out of the courthouse with a smile on my face. It was a beautiful day. Epilogue. Hey, Chloe, can you please stop teaching our daughter the number 3? She's already mastered it. Today is for the number 4. Our little girl, Joy, just babbled happily. Dada. Fui. Fui. I buried my face in my hands. Calling me Dada isn't going to help. For some reason, this kid was as obsessed with the number 3 as her mother was. Oh, Caleb, don't you remember? Chloe said, draping herself over my shoulders. 3 was our first pet name for each other. You were the homewrecker, and I was just 3. Okay, fine. I just hoped she'd never find out the real story. Joy, sweetie, stop saying 3. It's time for your milk. Chloe leaned in and whispered in my ear. Hey, honey, let's have 2 more. We could have 3 kids. God, who knew the cool, aloof goddess would turn into this? I rolled my eyes and borrowed an old line. Get your damn hands off me. She just laughed. Come on, let's make another one. Life is full of light. Just when I thought mine had been extinguished, I found a new sun.